All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Jennifer Anthony, and I'm a dietitian here at St. Alphonsus in Corporate Health and Wellness, and I welcome you to Mindfulness and Positive Psychology. So thank you for joining us today. So today we're going to talk about different challenges that we face. What is mindfulness and how can we apply that to those challenges? We're also going to talk about what positive psychology is, bringing it all together, and then simple techniques that we can use to deal with those challenges in daily life. And then I'm also going to give you a list of resources for more information. So first, I'm going to talk through different common challenges that many people face in day-to-day life. A big one is feeling like we need to be in productivity mode all the time or always on. You might notice that your brain's always going, you're always talking to yourself. So we may feel like we always have to be on, always doing something. We might find some uncomfortableness with boredom or doing nothing. But there's actually benefits to doing nothing. And sometimes rest, relaxation, low-key activities may be just what we need for our mental and physical health. So we're going to start off with watching this video from CBS Sunday Morning, and it just talks about the benefits and the importance of being lazy.
What you don't hear much about is the real value of doing nothing. With Susan Spencer, let's all take it easy.
For most of her working life, Celeste Headley never made any time for any time off.
I used to say I can outwork anybody. That used to be like my calling card.
A single mother, at one point she was balancing childcare with 7 different jobs.
I am a professional opera singer, so I sang for the Michigan Opera Theater. I also did a lot of writing jobs. I wrote for the Detroit News. I was filing freelance pieces for National Public Radio.
But in 2017, at age 47, she hit a wall.
I was irritable all the time. I was tired all the time. I mean, I started getting sick, and I'm a very healthy person. I don't generally get sick. So obviously I was overworked. And that was a problem that had to be solved.
First step, she quit her full-time job. Second, equally drastic move, she took a 2-week cross-country train ride, much of it without Wi-Fi, just to see what would happen.
For the first 3 or 4 days, it was panic. You know when you leave your house and you realize you don't have your cell phone on you, and you're like, but eventually it just started to feel okay.
By the time she got home, she'd had an epiphany.
Idleness, leisure time, is necessary for our own health and well-being.
The title of Headley's recent book says it all, but she argues social pressures make doing nothing hard to do. After all, we might be accused of the dreaded sin of laziness.
If somebody's lazy, right, they're not earning their place in society. They're a bum.
So you think laziness has become a bad word?
Yeah, absolutely.
How did laziness get such a bum rap?
Laziness gets a bum rap from religion, it gets a bum rap from capitalism, it gets a bum rap because we are trying to be productive in our lives.
And productivity is the real priority in America, says Professor Lonnie Golden, who teaches economics at Penn State Abington.
The big payoffs in the U.S. are making yourself available for a promotion or building your own business from scratch. So there's many good rewards from that.
But there's no reward for being lazy.
There's no reward for being lazy, I think it's fair to say. When you're at your high school reunion, you don't want to be saying, I've been doing nothing.
According to a recent survey, Americans value hard work over just about everything else, including self-fulfillment, marriage, patriotism, religion, and tolerance for others. Even retirees have a hard time doing nothing.
It gets to be what's called the conspicuous busyness, like, hey, look how busy I am and look how much time I'm spending. Maybe it's volunteering, but it should be okay to say I'm retired. And as a result, I can be lazy when I feel like being lazy.
But it's not.
Because we're in this cult.
This anti-lazy cult.
Yeah, we have all been basically brainwashed to believe that we have to work hard or we're not of value.
Which may explain why employers seem to love employees who say they can multitask. Really, what could be less lazy?
We hear this all the time. Businesses ask candidates, are you good at multitasking? And they want to hear yes. But what they should want to hear is no. People are motivated, people want to get ahead, it's understandable.
Professor Earl K. Miller, a neuroscientist at MIT's Picower Institute for Learning and Memory, has sobering news for a culture obsessed with juggling jobs.
Our brains are very one track. We can hold only one or two thoughts in mind at a time. That is it. We're very single-minded.
You mean it is physically impossible to multitask?
I mean, it is physically impossible to multitask.
Our poor brains, when struggling to multitask, instead simply slow down and make mistakes. A far better plan, says Professor Miller, is to try doing no tasks at all.
You know, a lot of times some of your best thoughts come to you when your conscious mind is out of the way, when you allow these unconscious thoughts to bubble up, right? And sometimes it's good to be lazy, not lazy, but to tune out a bit and let these thoughts bubble up.
That advice is a way of life at the 93-year-old Institute for Advanced Study, an academic research center in Princeton, New Jersey, where remarkably, doing nothing does not have a bad name, says director David Nuremberg.
What's a typical day like?
There isn't a typical day. You can do whatever you want. The day is yours.
When not gathering for tea each day, scholars may take a walk in the woods, sit by the pond, or even nap.
We all need space for non-intentional activity, non-intentional thought, contemplation. That's why weekends exist. I think that's why so many of our faith traditions have introduced days of rest.
But we think of that as being lazy.
I think it's a crucial part of being human.
Not to imply that anyone's slacking off. The Institute has been an intellectual home to Albert Einstein, J. Robert Oppenheimer, and 35 Nobel laureates.
Some of the most productive and renowned people in history worked maybe 4 hours a day. Charles Dickens, Charles Darwin, Henri Poincaré. I mean, these are people who had a focused time of 4 hours, and the rest of the time, what were they doing? They were dining, they were sitting in the garden, they were hanging out with friends.
They were being lazy.
Yeah, to our 21st century eyes, yeah, they were being lazy. To them, they were living their life. My friends definitely see me more.
And Celeste Headley wants all of us to start living our lives too.
Yeah, of course you take vacation.
So if you had one message about laziness, what would it be?
The most successful animals on the planet are the laziest. Think about how long lions lie around on the savannah. And when they need food, there's a burst of energy and activity, and they get it, and then they go back to lying around. If you look at the apex predators, some of the most successful species on planet Earth, they spend a good amount of their time doing nothing at all.
Okay, so like the video talked about, there might be health benefits for doing nothing. Sometimes we have guilt with that though. We're so used to trying to be productive. Or having a hard time finding simplicity in contentment in simplicity. But there is benefits to focusing on one task at a time. So the second challenge, so the first challenge, let's go back, is being in productivity mode or always on. And that can sometimes be draining multitasking can take us away from doing things in the present moment. The next challenge is pleasure seeking. So oftentimes we can also get caught up in seeking pleasure from things like phones, television, substances, food, especially high fat and high sugary foods. These things provide us with a quick burst of dopamine, and then there's usually a letdown later. So thinking about what are some other ways to cope with our emotions or our daily challenges. Maybe that's meditation, counseling, journaling, talking with a friend, exercise, and then using that mindfulness, being in the present moment while we're doing those things. The third challenge is comparison. This is a big challenge, comparison and envy. Sometimes our society can be highly competitive, and it can make it hard to constantly compare ourselves to others and feel like we're not measuring it up or we're not good enough. It can be easy to think that other people are happier, more successful than us. But truthfully, we don't know what other people are dealing with. And I think a good example of this is social media. People really, most of the time, post the best of their lives. And it's easy to compare ourselves with other people and feel like, again, we're not measuring up or we're not good enough. So going within ourselves and deciding what brings us happiness and mindfulness and calmness, I think is a good place to start. Making decisions for ourselves, not ones based on what society expects, society's expectations, but rather our true personal desires and what we want to get out of each of our individual lives. So all of these things, constant productivity, pleasure seeking, comparing ourselves to other people, and of course there are other things, can contribute to mental health challenges like insomnia, anxiety, depression, anger issues, maybe substance abuse or sleep problems or attention problems. These can compound our feelings of feeling not good enough, and our desire to fix ourselves. So being aware of these challenges is a good place to start, and then figuring out better ways to cope with them. Oops, let me go back, sorry. Okay, so the wild thing is that at the root of a lot of these challenges, it's a very simple process. A lot of the time we end up living in a reactivity mode. So we have a stimulus, a situation, a stressor, an emotion, and we react to it without much consideration to try to avoid discomfort. For example, we feel stressed, so we have a few drinks, or we feel upset, so we turn to the television for distraction, or maybe we feel lonely, so we turn to social media to try to connect with other people. Doing this sometimes is not a bad thing, but when we're doing it often, that it can cause more harm than good. And it's automatic, so it can make us feel like we don't have control. We can feel addicted to some of these things. So I think an important thing to do is when we're doing something, how do you feel after doing that? I know if I spend a lot of time on social media, I feel drained. And so that's not something that's serving me in a positive way. Or maybe it's texting a lot. So we have challenges in our lives and trying to figure out how we want to spend our time, how we want to spend our productivity and our energy, and doing more things that give us that positive energy. The state we don't access as often is called mindfulness. And mindfulness can help us cultivate where we notice an emotion or a situation or a stimulus. And then we pause, we ground ourselves in that moment, and then we make a choice of how to respond. And that is easier said than done. Sometimes we just react, but what we want to do is just take a moment, breathe, and respond. Or maybe we take a little bit more time and wait and kind of figure out how we're going to respond to a situation. And that's okay. But mindfulness can help us do that. In this way, we can change our mental, emotional state and how our life plays out. Again, this is challenging and it can be a practice. So try to have some compassion and patience for yourself if you're applying this. Again, it takes practice. So mindfulness, again, can help us be less reactive and feel less caught up in those common challenges. When we insert mindfulness, we aren't making decisions in order to be productive, seeking fleeting pleasure, or because we're comparing ourselves to others. Instead, we begin to make decisions based on our desire to be happy, to connect with others, and to contribute positively to ourselves and to the world. It can also help reduce mental health challenges that we face. So what is mindfulness? So mindfulness is the awareness of the present moment while acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and physical sensations. So mindfulness sounds simple, but it can actually be really challenging when we're not used to connecting with our own senses and our own emotions. When we're busy doing things, it's very hard to be mindful, especially when we're stressed or trying to do multiple things. We aren't often aware of how our bodies feel or the wide array of emotions we're feeling. We also might not notice many things in our environment, noticing what's around us, or maybe being in tune with how other people and what they're feeling that are around us. A lot of times we're living in our own heads, we're talking to ourselves rather than being in the present moment and being in the physical reality of what's going on around us. So mindfulness is not about ignoring negative emotions and suppressing those, but it's about acknowledging them, accepting how we're feeling, noticing them, and trying to remain present and be in the now. So mindfulness has been said to have two wings, awareness and compassion. The first step is being able to see things for how they really are, which is the awareness piece. But when we see things as they really are, it can be very easy to be critical of ourselves or others, especially when we notice all the ways we have been reacting or rather than responding. When we can see how imperfect we are and how imperfect other people are. This is why the wing of self-compassion is so important. We need to be able to see things we want to change with understanding and kindness towards ourselves, remembering that we have been doing our best and that even once we are aware, habits take time to change. At every moment in life, think back on it. We've probably done the best we could at that moment with the knowledge that we had. Again, we need to practice being patient with ourselves and with others, not expecting ourselves to be perfect at the mindfulness practice itself, and even being okay with feeling like we're downright bad at it. That doesn't mean it's not right for us or that we need to force ourselves to be better. Instead, it simply means that we need more practice. So again, mindfulness is an ongoing practice. So the awareness piece, let's dive more into that. I'm just going to move the camera over here a little bit. Sun's in my eyes. So needing to learn to tolerate negative emotions rather than labeling those negative emotions as wrong or bad, but seeing them as messengers. What are they telling us and how can it serve us? Being present, being aware of our surroundings, our sensations. Maybe that's the couch we're sitting on, feeling our feet on the floor or the ground, smelling or observing what's around us. Those all bring us to the present moment. We can actually be looking right at something, but not be present, but stuck in our heads. So again, mindfulness, being present, takes constant practice, and it's actually a practice that many people work on the rest of their life. So the other piece is compassion, having warmth and understanding for ourselves and others, being able to observe what we're feeling or what's happening around us without judgment or trying to fix it, and having self-kindness. Can we be a friend to ourselves and others through this process? Can we take time to observe what's going on around us without judging or fixing it? So spending time in this place of awareness and compassion can help us move to a place where we feel more peaceful, grounded, and then we'll be able to have the freedom to choose our response versus reaction to situations that we have confronted with. Mindfulness helps ground us and connect us to our true selves. Our true selves are actually calm, wise, loving, and when we're able to access a peaceful, still place within ourselves, despite whatever environment we're in, we then have the power to choose our paths. So I really like this quote by Viktor Frankl: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. We can't just expect ourselves to pause and reflect every time we deal with a stimulus, so we can choose wisely. If we're not practicing mindfulness throughout the rest of our lives, it will feel impossible to do it in those moments when we need it the most, when we're confronted with a stressful situation. So one important step that we can take is practicing bringing mindfulness to activities we do every day, where we're just doing a simple task that we normally do, and doing that one thing at a time and really paying attention, being in the present moment and focusing on that. In our environment, the physical sensations, our emotions, without rushing. It's not always about what we're doing, but how we're doing it. Most activities can be done mindfully. So here are some examples of normal everyday activities where we can bring mindfulness in as a practice. Washing dishes, noticing the feeling of the warm soapy water on our hands or the bubbles, paying attention to small details, checking in with how your body feels. Same with listening to music, going on a walk, or mindfully eating, taking in the colors and the textures of how beautiful food is, chewing well, taking in the textures and the flavors of food. So that's mindful eating, where we slow down and we're present with our food and we really enjoy it, because food is meant to be enjoyed. So can we really pay attention to the details of each activity rather than multitasking? For many of us, sometimes we watch TV, but we're texting at the same time. So are we really present with what we're watching? So these are some regular practices for mindfulness. So having a regular meditation practice. And if you're not familiar with meditation, a good place to start is by just doing 5 or 10 minutes. You can do that by sitting on a bed and being in the present moment, allowing thoughts to come and go like passing clouds, and paying attention to your breath. And there are guided meditations out there as well, different apps, or guided meditation on YouTube if you need help with that. There's also meditation groups around Ada County. Having a gratitude journal is also another practice. Doing a body scan, gentle yoga, or mindfully walking. So practicing being in the present moment and aware of how we're feeling in our surroundings while we're walking. If you'd like to know more about the raisin meditation practice, there's the link right there. Or you could just Google it. It's really easy to find. So benefits of mindfulness. Mindfulness creates the opportunity to find refuge no matter what is going on in our lives or the world around us. A still haven without needing anything to change or to be fixed. It helps us accept the things we don't have control over and exercise agency over the things that we do. So part of mindfulness is being able to decipher what are the things that we have control over and which are the things that we don't. And on the things we do have control over, what action can we take to improve those or to cope with them? So mindfulness can help reduce stress, lower blood pressure, improve sleep and quality of sleep, improve memory, where we learn to respond rather than react and choosing coping mechanisms that will help benefit us long term rather than ones that will bring immediate pleasure in the short term, but only cause more problems in the long term. So connecting mindfulness and positive psychology. So mindfulness has been a component of the field known as positive psychology since the field was founded. Both mindfulness and positive psychology have the same primary goal or effect: increased well-being, both alone and in connection with others. So in positive psychology, mindfulness is used as self-care, as a tool to improve relationships in our personal lives and at work, and to help us navigate injustices and hardships and stressors. So positive psychology was coined by Abraham Maslow and pioneered by Martin Seligman about 1998. And what Martin Seligman noticed in psychology was that a lot of the focus was on what was bad or wrong with people and how can we fix that. And he wanted to take it more into a positive place where we focus on what's good with people. So focusing on people's strengths and their beneficial behaviors so that people can build lives with purpose and meaning, going beyond surviving, but to flourishing. So positive psychology is a scientific approach that again focuses on strength over weaknesses, building the good instead of fixing the bad, and cultivating capacities to build our own lives and the lives of those around us. So if positive psychology is rooted in well-being, it's important to note that a happy life does not mean one where we're happy all of the time or where we ignore the negative things happening to us or our negative emotions. It's one where the difficult emotions and experiences are not bad or wrong, so we don't label them as bad or wrong, but where we feel like we have support and resilience to move through them, allowing ourselves to feel the normal range of human emotions, which is a variety of emotions, including sadness, fear, loneliness, excitement, joy, and so on, and to then feel a sense of peace in life and optimism for the future. So there's three kinds of happiness: the pleasant life, where we find pleasure and gratification, enjoying life's daily pleasures. Maybe that's good food or enjoyable activities. The engaged life, embodiment of strengths and virtues and skills that we may have or skills we want to have. The meaningful life, building a life that feels like it has meaning and purpose and contributing to the greater good. So all of these components are important for a happy, balanced, and fulfilling life. There's a bit of a progression where if you just had sensory pleasures in your life all the time, the satisfaction of that would be fleeting. So while being engaged can bring you into a flow state, and finding meaning can give you more long-term satisfaction and fulfillment. So the different components of positive psychology include character strength, positive relationships, positive states and traits, positive experiences, and positive institutions. So assessing and understanding our individual strengths can help us find ways to utilize them in our work and in our life. One of the ways we can assess that is through the Value in Action Survey. It's a 240 question character strengths assessment. It's a free online tool, and I'll have that link for you at the end of the presentation if you'd like to take that. It's a measurement that uses a 5-point Likert system to measure the degree to which respondents endorse items reflecting 24 strengths, and I'll show you those in a second. So if you're interested in taking that, it's free online, and I'll give you that link. When it comes to positive relationships, this is about filling our lives with people who inspire us. They validate us and how we feel, and they make us feel safe and to be fully ourselves. It also means setting boundaries with the people who don't resonate with us, and that's okay. Setting boundaries can be a challenging thing, but knowing your boundaries and setting those is an important part of our health. Positive states and traits means we want to cultivate more of the enduring positive emotions, allowing ourselves to feel the difficult emotions, but not getting stuck there, and connecting with gratitude, resilience, compassion, and presence. Positive experiences mean enriching our lives with positive experiences, activities that make us feel happy, inspired, and connected to love. And then positive institutions means finding communities and organizations we can be a part of at work, after work, or on the weekend that make us feel inspired and energized and helps us connect to other people in our community. So these are the 24 character strengths. So if you decide to take the via character strength assessment, some of these include enthusiasm, gratitude, purpose, forgiveness, curiosity, and creativity. You can use your character strengths to move towards living in alignment with your personal values, because everyone's values will vary. These strengths are not fixed, so if you've taken this before, it may change. So it's okay if you notice you have different strengths at different points in your life. You can also purposefully develop specific ones with time and practice. So taking some time to kind of think about what will you do to practice mindfulness in your own life. And if you are open to sharing some of those things that maybe you currently do or are interested in with the group, we'd love to hear those. Would anyone like to share kind of their own mindful practices or anything that they're interested in? Okay, so going to church, thank you. Yes, going to church is an excellent way to connect with other people that have similar beliefs and spirituality. Making art, great, love it. Being creative, let's see. Let me pull up the chat. Okay, let's see. So making art, recently, let's see, I started doing one slow thing a day, great, and being present, practicing that mindfulness and being in the present, that's great. Such as drinking tea, but slowly. Yeah, I think that's great. So when we take just a simple thing and we're really in the present with it, I kind of find that it's so much more enjoyable, really taking in the flavor, like the tea, the temperature of it. It's also very calming. So doing a gratitude journal, great. Deep breathing, attending a free yoga class at the local library for about 5 years now, great, love it. So that brings up a good point that there's a lot of opportunities out in our community to do these things. Great, going to the gym, using Headspace, great. Coffee hour daily, gardening, wonderful, love it. So those are all activities that we can do mindfully. So wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So our last slide here are some resources. Somebody mentioned Headspace. So that is listed on here. There are other apps out there as well that we can use for a guided meditation or mindfulness activities. So at the top here is the via character assessment, if you're interested in taking that. Tara Brock is a author and psychologist that has different webinars on her site and meditation, if you're interested. Plum Village as well. And then the Positive Psychology Center. This website is excellent. There's a lot of resources on there, so I encourage people to check that out if you're interested in learning more about positive psychology. And then again, there's lots of apps out there. The Calm app, even YouTube has some good guided meditations or guided mindfulness activities. So Insight Timer, and then of course Headspace. So someone else mentioned taking an hour for me every evening after the kids go to bed, usually sitting in the quiet and meditating. Great. So I love it. This is awesome. We know mindfulness is not easy. We have challenges in our lives that we each face. And again, being compassionate with yourself, knowing that this is a practice, an ongoing practice, but it can lead to us to be able to cope and deal with those daily challenges better, be more effective, and also lead to a happier and healthier life. So thank you for joining, and thank you for getting through the first part of the presentation where I had a little bit of difficulty with the video. So thank you for your patience. Is there any questions? You're welcome. My pleasure.
I wanted to pop on here too and let people know that if they weren't able to see the entire presentation, we did record it and we will have that link and we'll send it to everyone that registered. Also, I am including in the chat just a brief little survey, if you wouldn't mind filling that out for us, so that way we can just get your feedback about the presentation, and we hope that you guys will all join us again in January, I believe it is, when we have our next presentation.
Thank you and have a beautiful day.